On the back end, if you need anything deleted or erased, you just text us, let us know, and we'll...
Look, if it comes out of my mouth, I'm accountable for it.
Okay,
so.
cool.
We just do the live delete as I go. Actually, hang on. Let me hold that thought.
Yeah. I'm working on Caleb being able to master that ability. So
I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
No, that's the spice of life. We like honesty. We like raw thought, right? That's
that stuff goes. It's
you can't edit
all
out
the
too
Caleb
much.
stuff goes viral for us, basically.
Is that
That's
right?
what it is. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's your doing.
Yeah. It's good. It's like talk therapy. It's like detox. Like when I word vomit, it's like a detox getting crap out of me.
You feel better.
And then I feel better afterwards. And then I think to myself, do I really believe that?
You reserve the right to change your opinion later.
Yeah. It's like throwing up a bunch of old food.
Yeah. And go, oh, I ate that. That was in there. Okay. So good.
What was we were talking about circumcision a few weeks ago, and then you said
This is how this is gonna go. All right, here we go.
and then you said what celebrity were you talking about?
Oh God, are we really going down this road?
No, I'm not gonna go there.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
What was the celeb? What's the girl that says that she uses it for her Botox?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
Right. So Caleb says that, and then we're in a group text later on. He's like, hey, you guys think I could get sued for that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, 100%. You know?
Oh, I got so.
And then he goes, why didn't we take it out? Why did
Right.
I was like, because you said it. I mean, it just, you know. And then I said, no, I think we're good because she said it on public television. So we're straight. It's not a conspiracy theory stuff. So
Yeah.
But that's an instance of Caleb said something. We
Caleb,
clip it.
I need to hear some of that today. That's what I'm here for. I want to hear some of the full, honest truth.
Well, I'm realizing that I'm kind of bipolar, and I haven't. I didn't know that about myself until this podcast, but I'm starting to realize that I'm kind of bipolar.
Self-diagnosed.
Yeah.
He starts off calm, and then if you just hit the right trigger, it's just back up.
Love
you
it.
know, like just back up and walk away. Today, everyone, if you're listening to us, if you're not watching us, Beyond the Letter, welcome everybody. As always, you got me and Caleb, People's Padre, in the house. That's who we are. We're the Padre to the people.
Love it.
And then we got special guests, one of my good friends, Pastor Adam Smallcombe,
What's
who
up?
pastors up in Northern California, Vibe Church, but they got 11 campuses. They're everywhere. Beijing, Hong Kong. No,
That's not prophetic, is it?
Yeah. I feel like it's coming soon. But Honolulu,
That's
Milan,
right. That's right.
Rome,
Yep.
Chicago.
It's a test.
Austin,
Yes.
Chicago,
Right.
San Jose.
Yes.
Outside of San Jose, I think you call it like South, right?
South Valley.
South Valley.
Yep.
See, I'm good.
Yep, South Valley.
Oakland,
San Francisco.
San Francisco,
Mountain View, baby.
Mountain View, which is your campus that you know you started everything out of, which is in the middle of Silicon Valley, like 2 miles away from Google.
Yep.
Wow.
People that go to his church are incredible leaders in Silicon Valley, and people who are being pastored by Pastor Adam in the Silicon Valley space, which you got to kind of seen it. I brought Aaron's on here with us too
Right.
today, so I brought
He
Aaron
spent some
up there to
time
see
down
him.
here.
Yeah.
We've spent some time together down in the Mountain View area.
Yeah.
Did you guys got to tour Meta the last time you were there?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that a trip?
that was my third time, but it was his first time.
Okay.
What'd you think, Aaron?
Incredible. Was Meta the one where on the roof it was like
Well, the whole
you're
thing
just-
was
yeah,
Meta.
the garden. The whole thing's Meta, but you might be talking about
We took-
Instagram office or something like that.
Yeah, we took you to Meta, or the original Meta, which was like the little city in town, and then we took you to their newest offices across the street, which is like, they're
You
like
can oversee the city. You can go on a hike or
Yep.
run or whatever. That
Yep.
was
Around
just
the rooftop.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
they're
was
crazy.
extraordinary.
to give people an idea. This is like a 30-story building.
Yep.
But it's like but it's all one floor, so there's not like tons of multiple floors. And then the roof is basically like a half a mile long park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's built on top of a roof of a building.
It's actually nicer
Like-
outside than it is inside.
100%.
Did you notice that? Like
Yeah. Oh,
inside
yeah.
is like cables hanging everywhere, and
Yeah.
the whole concept is from Zuck that we're only 1% done. That's the
shoot.
whole. It's intentional.
Oh, it's intentionally,
intentionally
not done.
not
Got
done.
it. Okay.
Because we haven't arrived. Except it's done outside. Outside's nice.
Dang. I'm gonna do that with my wife at home. From now on. When she's like, when are you going to fix this door?
It
Like,
worked for Zuck.
babe, we've not arrived.
Right. Yeah, we're 1%
Humility
done.
is what we
That's
need.
purpose.
Why haven't you done the dishes?
Yeah.
We're 1% done.
Dang, that's good life lesson. That's gonna be on my tombstone.
Only had 1% done.
Only 1% finished.
Yeah, that's a great life lesson.
Yes, but
I
we
can
are in the
use that.
Silicon Valley. 10 years now. 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm Australian. I'm Australian American. I naturalized.
You're a citizen now.
I'm full citizen.
Oh, wow, okay.
Full American.
He can own guns.
I can.
He can vote.
I have.
Yeah.
I can, and I have.
Yeah. You
Yes,
definitely pay taxes now.
I do.
Yeah.
How long have you been a citizen?
I've been a citizen for 2.5 years now.
Oh, wow, recent. Okay.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Congrats.
Thank you.
You were in America for 11, 10?
In America now, 11 years, yes. 11 years in the States. We became citizens. I actually became a citizen 2.5 years ago. My wife became a citizen only 6 months ago. May have been my fault, because when we were filling out the application, I thought that, it was like a dual application. I didn't realize she had to do a separate one. And so, yeah, long story short,
Got
it
it.
took her a lot longer.
So it
but
asked
we've
you-
reconciled. We're fine.
It asked you if you were married, and you put it, and you're
asked
just
you-
assuming like,
And it says,
That'd be
is this
both
a
of us.
joint application? And
Yeah.
ticked all that. But then they're like, oh, no, there's no such thing. Everybody's an individual. I'm like, okay, great.
No way.
And there's no real arguing in those settings.
and you had to learn more than the average American even knows, right?
I was just listening to a YouTube with Vivek this morning. He's
Yeah.
a candidate, for Republican Party for presidency. He was talking about what he would like to do is he would like to make every incoming immigrant have it at the beginning of their visa application. He even said he wants every high school student to do the naturalization test.
Oh shoot.
Oh, wow. So they
Standardize it.
Standardize it because he's all about American excellence, right?
Yeah.
He wants America to be excellent, like we all do.
Yeah.
And there's so many people who come in, like I came in, and I've asked people the questions that I had to answer on the test for naturalization.
They had no idea, right?
Nobody has any
Yeah.
idea at all.
Dang.
Like
Like, what were? Do you remember? Like, what are some
Oh
of the
yeah, just
questions?
the
on-
different branches of the government,
Yeah.
judicial
Right.
systems, all those kinds of
Dang.
things.
And people are going,
yeah,
I don't know.
No one has any idea.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I think when you have that perspective, I found more immigrants more passionate. I'm an immigrant, more passionate about being an American than natural-born Americans.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of the intentionality. You know what I mean? That intentionality to say, hey, I see how this country's formed. I know the history of why we do what we do with the big American experiment.
Yeah.
And why this is the greatest nation on earth, because the free market system and the opportunities, all that kind of stuff, you see that from an outside in.
Yeah.
So you're grateful for it, right? When you've lived with it, I think there is maybe a redundancy or taking it for granted that I think what Vivek was saying is like, imagine if we just all got that perspective by having to learn about how America came to be.
Yeah.
Being able to actually know how America's set up, how the structure of it is, it may just shift people's perspective on America. So
Yeah, and because I think, and we talk about it all the time, like how I'm not a fan of the education system. So, we take U.S. government and U.S. history and all that kind of stuff like that, and then you take economics in high school and all that, but it's not done in a true way that exchanges information. You're ticking boxes.
Right.
You're marking A, B, C, D. There's really nothing. There's nothing on the end of it, right? Like as long as I take this test and I get the grade, there's really nothing on the other side. Where for you, or even if I think like what you're saying with Vivek is like, if I know that technically I'm not going to be able to get my driver's license or whatever
Exactly.
unless I prove that I'm a value add citizen
Yes.
To this country, or
Yes.
there's a certain limitation to the opportunities. Like you could see that, and then I know immediately people go into like, oh well, what about the low income education centers and X, Y, and Z? But at the end of the day, like in order to formulate a healthy country, there should be a level of education and reason for the education to value, which I could see that, because I'm like, a lot of people are like, well, I took those courses. It's like, why didn't you retain any of it then?
right.
I think you hit it. There's no why. So you had a why
For sure.
of why I need to understand these things. If you're just growing up learning these things without understanding why or the value or what it connects to, you answer the correct answers and then you move on.
Yeah, and it's not that it's not like it's a difficult test.
Right. Right.
Because there's people who,
It's not hard.
I mean, people are being naturalized in the same group as me who can't even speak English.
Yeah.
Right.
And then some are like 70, 80 years
Yes,
old, right?
super.
It's so.
But they've just applied themselves to learn about the country.
What was the purpose of you moving to? Was it to start a church or moving
So
to
we
America?
moved to start a church. We moved to start Vive Church in 2012. So we were youth pastors in Australia, and we had great success with youth ministry, so to speak. There, if whatever the term success means, but we're just seeing God move,
successful.
powerful. It was growing, that kind of stuff. And as a result, I remember being 30 years old at the time and thinking, man, I feel like a really old youth pastor, but I'd be a really young senior pastor. And so I thought, okay, this is the transition moment. I spoke to my pastor, he agreed. And we were looking all around Sydney. We're looking at northern beaches. If you've ever been to Sydney, it's just like, okay, that's definitely where you want to start a church. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like Newport Beach or something like that, right? And so
Yeah.
we're just like, and then my uncle who was in San Francisco, he put on Twitter, in beautiful San Francisco, would love to see a church planted here. And something about that tweet was just like, huh? Like, hang on, America is the church nation.
Right.
From my perspective, like that, America sends the missionaries. No one's a missionary to America. So I just began to research, like, what's the Bay Area?
It's like 2011, 2012?
2011.
Wow.
So I'm literally learning real time about the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Stanford, like just how much products come out of the Silicon Valley. And I have this thought, Caleb, if Paul wrote, I desire to go to Rome, knowing that all roads lead to Rome and all roads lead out of Rome, that Rome was a cultural center of that day, that if you can hit Rome, you hit the world. You affect trade, you affect policy, you affect government. I thought, you know what, the Silicon Valley, it's the center of the modern world. Every product that we have on this table, like these phones, you go to remote parts of the world, they've still got products that come out of the Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
Technology.
What's crazy, though, is even in 2011, like, that's a really insider take. Like, nowadays, people know Silicon Valley.
Yes.
But in 2011, you were really you were playing roulette. You're betting on black.
For sure. But I was just doing some research. And I could see what was building. I could see what Apple are building. You could see, what Steve Jobs had been doing, all that kind of stuff. There was emerging technology. I remember it wasn't actually that long before it, where people were choosing Blackberries with buttons over an iPhone because it had even the technology, the mindset hadn't adapted yet in society.
Oh, yeah.
And so we said, that's the place we've got to be. So we moved over. We came over. We actually planned to start in San Francisco because it was like, San Francisco is a prominent city. But I didn't like it. I didn't like the city. We went there. We're like, man, this is chaos. It definitely needed church and needed a move of God. But I think we needed to position ourselves. Our experience was with college and young people. That was kind of like our wheelhouse. And so we did a trip down to Stanford University just to get on campus, just to meet students and just chat. And it was when we were going through Palo Alto that just God said, this is it. This is the place. And that's when we started, 2012. Started the church with just one other couple that we'd met. They had moved from Seattle, Vance and Kim.
Yep. Overflow.
Yep, he runs Overflow. He had moved from, at the time, the church was called the City Church in Seattle. He had moved down, and they were looking for a church. Their pastor had told them, hey, Adam's coming to Silicon Valley. We connected. Wow. We had a Thai lunch. He was working at Google. We rode the Google bikes around the place, and we ate Thai food and just shared the vision. And on that lunch, they're like, all right, let's do this. Let's build the church together. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this how it's going to go? This is great, And then he's like, what do I do? And I said, well, you start tithing. And he's like, when? I said, well, when I set up a bank account. Just hold off until I set up that. But that was 2012, January 2012. Moved here, and we launched August 2012.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, we had no money, by the way. Like, this is kind of old school.
Well, it's insane. And you pick.
Right.
You pick, not everyone understands real estate aspects, but it's like basically you picked Beverly Hills. Basically you pick, like
we didn't know that
you're
though.
picking a place that that like economically is the thing is like we know exorbitantly wealthy people don't give generously.
Yep.
So as a pastor, you never pick a place that is high in real estate, high in economics, high in wealthy people. because they're actually really not generous. So
Yeah.
anyone that would think like, oh, you just go to a neighborhood that is very wealthy, your church will be fine. It's like, actually, it's the opposite.
It is.
So the fact that you guys chose that, and then the idea is like, as your church is booming, you start looking around and go like, well, how the heck are we going to get a building? How are we going to get a church?
And we honestly, I'll be really frank, we didn't know any of that. We didn't know anything. And I think that's why sometimes ignorance is bliss. You get all these church planning. I'm probably a little bit different in the church planning model, where it's not like go and do the research about the city, know the demographic, know everything.
Yeah.
I just think don't know much. Just go in bold. Just go in with confidence, because sometimes if you know too much, it actually works against you, because all of a sudden you start to see all the obstacles.
Yeah.
You start to see all the enemies. You start to it becomes fortified. Sometimes the ignorance, like we got victory on our side, let's go for it, works. And I think that was what we even saw in the beginning, where our testimony, we would talk to people and they're like, what, you just moved from Australia to start a church? And we're like, yeah, it worked. But I told that story so much in the first year that I got tired of that story.
Okay.
And I literally had this thought, I don't want to be 10 years from now telling the same story.
Yeah.
Not that story isn't good, but what is God doing new?
Okay.
So that's when we started to say, well, let's just keep planting churches every year. Let's do this every year. And
Jeez.
So we've been planting churches every year since then, campuses. So we're launching our 11th location now in London, but that just came out of vision. Like, let's just keep being crazy. Let's keep planting.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then you guys just got your building
Miracle.
you moved in a year ago.
Moved in a year ago.
Yeah. So you were 10 years portable church?
10 years and 10 locations portable. And but that building is an absolute miracle.
And when we say portable church, not everyone who listens to us may not know, like literally people are showing up at 4 a.m. from an RV pulling out,
rolling off truck stuff,
stage and audio, and you're doing that every week.
Yeah.
And then when it's done,
Every
you're
location.
packing it back up, all that.
Where?
closing
What
down.
property? What
What do we buy?
when you do portable, are you doing it like outside?
We're doing it in different community centers, high schools.
Okay, got it.
Event centers.
Okay.
All the locations have different setup. We did it in the Mountain View one for 10 years in the Jewish Community Center, which was a trip.
Okay.
To literally be in the Jewish Community Center and having church, which was fun. But we did that for 10 years straight, and we just got our building last year, which is, I always get a little bit envious of all the pastors that have these stories of, God gave us a building.
Yeah, right.
That's never been
no
my
work.
story.
We just had faith, and God gave us the room.
We're just praying. We're on a prayer retreat, and God dropped the build. No, we paid full price. We got no deals.
Yeah. And we're competing with other people to buy it,
competing with
right?
Apple. We're competing with Google.
Yeah.
And but absolute miracle how it came to be, and it's a game changer.
Jeez.
So have you ever rubbed shoulders with some giants? Any interesting story like in that area? Like any notable figures that we would know about? Maybe a conversation, a lunch, or attending your service, or
The funny thing is you wouldn't know them.
Okay.
Because, the celebrities that people know, the celebrities of Silicon Valley are like CEOs or these VPs or these venture capitalists, all these kinds of things that everybody know. So it took me some time to actually know who are these people. And, you're in rooms where, I've just learned not to make a fool of myself and just, be too ignorant where, I'm just assuming. I just made the assumption years ago because I had a situation that you're talking about where had a whole lunch with this person. I had no idea that they're one of the leading VCs of one of the biggest venture capital firms in the whole Silicon Valley, and I didn't even know because Silicon Valley is the whole vibe of the Silicon Valley is you can't tell wealth. It's like it's hidden wealth. It's like they're just wearing khakis and whatever.
Chino khakis and a Patagonia jacket.
Exactly, Patagucci jacket. and they're the truth is I just made an assumption. I'm going to treat everyone like they're a celebrity. I'm just going to treat everyone like they're super important because I don't want to miss that moment again and make a fool of myself and not understand. I was in the presence of someone who's done some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. That happened to me once, and then I felt you just get a day where you're like not in the mood. And so you're just like not in the mood. So like we did this whenever Joel Osteen comes into town. He invites any pastor, like,
Right,
hey,
right.
really what they want to do is there's going to be a lot of unbelievers come.
Yeah.
I want you guys to be your name on there.
Right.
It's not even like a big money bid or anything
Sure.
like that. He's just generous. And like a lot of people are going to come. They don't have churches. I want them to go to your church. So like when we did this event, we got 200 first-time visitors the next day from
Right.
it. So I mean, it
worked,
It
yeah.
works, right? So we did that. We just went, and then they told us like they'd have seating for us and stuff like that. And then I already didn't, because this is my first time being there. So I just was like, I don't know that I want to be here at this, but I'm supporting our church is doing it and stuff like that. And because we didn't come from Joel Osteen's camp or anything
Right.
like that. So they seat us like 15 rows back, and it's already like really packed.
Yep.
And then, my dad kind of sits more towards the front. And so there's this lady like being pretty nice and friendly, but, I'm just not really, it's just not
You're
a
not
good
in the
day
mood.
for me. Yeah,
Right.
I'm not in the mood. So I'm just kind of, I'm not being rude, but I'm giving very kind of short replies and stuff like that. And she was, she was very nice. She's talking to Ashley, my wife. And then she's like, oh yeah, you guys are such a nice, cool young couple. We're telling we're a ministry and all that. But she keeps wanting to talk about church, and I don't really want to talk about that at the moment, So she's like, she's asking me kind of about our church. Like, where is it? Where did it,
Right.
And I could tell, like, she didn't really have any interest in coming. She's just asking questions.
Small talk.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I'm not a small talker. I'm more of like, what's
Right.
the mission? What are we talking about?
Sure.
Let's hash out some big concepts, right? So she's just like, man, I'd love to connect with you. I love to exchange numbers. And so I kind of look and I'm like, yeah, after the event, would love to exchange numbers, And she's like, okay, great. And then we're sitting down and she's waiting for her husband. She has a seat saved for her husband. And she's like, oh, my husband has a seat up there. I'm going to go sit with my husband, but I'll find you guys after. Have a great day. And she walks and she gives her husband a kiss, who happens to be Terry Crews.
There you go.
So she wanted to go to lunch with us.
We're all feeling your pain.
And I did.
We're all like, yeah.
I mean, she was in it. Like, she's like, we got to exchange numbers. Me and my husband would be. And then I thought,
Mad.
I wasn't rude, but I thought I could have gave more.
Yeah.
You
got to check
yourself.
yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not even that celebrity moment. It's just, it could be someone in your church.
Yeah.
Like this one time, Kira and I were out on a date night, all right? And, you're married, so okay, not every date night is hot and sometimes date night's a discussion,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're like, you're hashing some stuff
Yeah,
out.
for real.
And so we were in this restaurant, and I don't know, I don't even remember it, but we must have been having like a pretty stern discussion with each other. That Sunday, this lady said, oh, I saw you guys on date night the other night. It looked like you guys were talking about something, so I didn't interrupt. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just felt real bad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
man, it keeps you conscious to go. Could I preset my perspective from the start?
Yeah. And why was it on my A game? In the sense of like, yeah, regardless of who the person is, when you experience that, you're just like, why was I in my head? Why were we?
Yeah.
Why did we have a face like
Well, you were
that? That was
15 seats,
unwelcoming or
15
whatever.
rows back,
Yeah, that's what it was.
I don't know who I am.
I didn't have VIP. No, yeah, it just was like, you go to so many church services that when
Right.
you have to go to one, you think to yourself, I've already been to 5 in 1 week. And
Right.
you're like, do we want to go to another church service? Which then you got to find a way to, no, we're going to love this. We're going to enjoy this. And you always
Yeah.
leave and you go, man, that was fun. But,
Sure.
but in the moment,
You have to
you're leaving
engage your
yourself
head.
up.
Yeah.
And I wasn't engaged, right? I wasn't, so, I mean, that was experience. I just learned, like, in the same way, like you, regardless, whether it's a celebrity or not, if someone is wanting to engage in conversation, man, just switch.
Yeah.
Just be presentable,
Yeah.
be engaging, have the
Or be
conversation,
approachable.
So
yeah.
I got a situation. Tell me what you guys would do in this situation.
all right.
This happened a few years ago. My wife and I are on a date. And we're chilling, we're talking, we're looking at each other, blah, blah, blah. Then there's a member of the church that comes up, oh, hey, Aaron, how you doing, blah, 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 hey, what's up, how you doing, yeah. Oh, you guys are on a date? Yeah, this is my wife, we're on a date. Oh, cool. Let me pull up a chair, and I'm going to bring my friend over here, and we can all hang out together.
Right.
And then just walked off, and then ordered coffee.
And came back.
Yeah. So me and my wife are looking at each other like, are we now on a double date? Like what do we do? Like, how do I?
Sounds like a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah. It was like really, because
Yeah.
when that person said, are you on a date with your wife?
Yeah, they
And I
clearly
said,
acknowledged
yes.
there was a sense of
I thought there was a
intimacy
social
happening.
cue to be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
it was good seeing you.
Right.
Blah, blah. It was like, oh, cool. Let me introduce you to my friend. We're going to grab some coffees and we'll be right back.
And by introduce your friend, is it just a buddy, or is this a girl he was interested in?
It was another guy.
Okay, so it's just a friend.
He's just
Yeah.
a friend that I
And they
never
joined you
met.
on your double date.
And then they came and sat with us.
So that's when you just you follow him up to get the coffee and be like, hey, bro, sorry, I'm trying to get some.
I'm trying to pull some game on my wife right now.
Yeah, it's a date night. I'm trying to make sure this ends well.
Yeah.
So you get me, bro. And if he doesn't
Here's
get
my
that,
here's my email. Here's my number. Let's get coffee another
exactly,
time,
another
right?
day. Exactly.
Is that what you did?
no.
Oh, you let him sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron's
He's a pastor for the people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a true people's
Yeah,
padre for
he's a-
sure.
yeah.
For sure. I think I would have froze too. I mean, if my brain activated fast enough, I would have followed. If it didn't, I would have looked at Ashley and been like, "I'll take you shopping after." I was just like, "Let's just eat this up. Let's do it." I was at some of this notice. I was at lunch this week, and I was sitting next to Shia LaBeouf, and
There
I
you
was
go.
trying to make an in. Because I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of his Catholic story right now.
Right,
and I was waiting for an in to have it. But like people were coming up to him left and right.
I'm sure.
Like, hey, can I get a selfie?
sure.
Can I? One dude sat and talked for 10 minutes. Like, and
Was he annoyed?
He
Can you
was
tell?
kind the whole
was
time
kind.
to every. It was we're in Pasadena, and they had it's indoor seating, but then they had two like cafe chairs outside with tables and chairs. So the place was packed. So when me and Ashley came out to eat, well, we noticed he was there when we walked in, but there's nowhere to sit. So we just went outside and sat to the table next to him. And then I thought, I'm like, if, because everybody knows, like, famously, I tell Matt Damon's story a lot. So I'm like, the same way I had a conversation with Matt Damon,
Right.
I'm going to make it in and have one with Shia if there's downtime. Like, if the other guy he's with looks at his phone, if there's a quiet time,
Yeah, good
and he's
moment.
just like, looking up in the sky or whatever, like happens at lunch sometimes. You're just eating your food, no one's saying anything. I'm like, if that happens, then I'm just going to say something briefly. Well, he gets stopped for like, we're there for like 30 minutes. Like 4 people come up to him within
In
that
that time.
span, and they're talking. Some are getting selfies. The dude is nice to every person,
Right.
talking to them as if like they're good friends, which I was like, oh man, that's cool. I've always had everybody in society has more of this picture like he's a pretty off-tempered guy who hates
Right.
paparazzi and all this stuff. And
Right.
he was the nicest guy ever. And then, but I didn't get the end to have that conversation. And then, but I was like, man, it's okay. It didn't need to happen. Because then I don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, can I join a chair with you and have lunch with you, Shia? So I just left it alone. I was like,
I'm trying to do hallowed right now.
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like-
exactly. Yeah, he's like, I'm trying to promote this, my confirmation that's happening, which talked about it. Yeah, so now, I mean, I love seeing people now, like when I'm out talking to people and stuff, because I've just learned that one instance. All I needed was that one instance with that Terry Crews thing to happen to me. That just be like, didn't have
changed you.
anything to do with
Yeah.
his celebrity, just more of like you just didn't need to. You didn't need to be in a bad mood like that. You could have come out of it really fast.
Totally.
So now I'm just like anywhere. I just immediately, see someone, I fix my face and like engage in that conversation right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And follow up and build that relationship. I have a video for you that I want to share with you,
Oh, that's exciting.
Adam, and I want to know
That's
your
exciting.
thoughts. Okay, so Gabe, you got the one that I
I feel
gave
like this
you.
is a setup.
Yes, sir. Yes,
It's
sir.
not
Just
a
the way you
setup.
presented this.
It just was a good transition to lead into something. I got a video I want you to check out. There's the new Snow White 7 Dwarfs. It's supposed to be coming out through Disney.
Wow.
Let's go.
And there was an interview between Gal Gadot, who's supposed to be, I guess, the witch in it, and then the girl who's the new Snow White.
Right.
And they make a comment in the interview that
Oh.
I want to hear your thoughts on. So, Gabe, if you got it, play it for me, man.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
She's not going to be
yeah.
saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Yo.
There's no longer A prince that's needed.
The prince ain't coming. She gonna save herself.
I don't need no man.
Yes.
Yes,
man.
queen. Yes, queen.
And we don't got the normal girls that are hanging out in our podcast. We're filming this on an off Saturday. So
Right.
we got the guys in the room. So dangerous. Normally we put girls on the podcast to help even us out. But
That's nice. That's nice.
So we don't go off board too much. But
yeah.
bro.
You know, so we're having this discussion right now in our house because I'm a dad of 3 daughters. Okay,
Yeah.
so I am a big fan of my girls having a strong identity that their identity isn't a dependency.
Yeah.
You know, that there is a complement that a husband and wife bring together. And so I'm a big fan of seeing my girls empowered, you know, seeing my girls live their best calling in Christ, all that kind of stuff. And so yet we're having this discussion in our house because they're all amped on the new Barbie movie.
Okay.
And they're psyched about it.
Yeah.
But we literally on my family thread, because my eldest is 20 now, my twins are about to turn 17. Actually, my eldest is about to turn 20, they're about to turn 17. And so we have these family chats where we go in on a lot of discussions as a family. And the discussion that I'm having is that this is a feminist movie. From the perspective, because I got no problem with Barbie being I think in the movie she's like the president, she's a lawyer, she's a doctor, she's all these accolades. Ken is just there to look good. And so Hypebeast actually put out a little comment about it. Of all the different, I think, people to speak about it, Hypebeast was going in on, they call it Kenergy, where it's like in the fashion world where he's dumb. He doesn't have much going on for him. He's there just to shave his legs and look good at all times. He's an accessory for Barbie, but he's well dressed all the time. And so they were literally presenting it as the role reversal. The amazing, finally, we've got the role reversal where the man is the accessory, and so we were going in on it, and some of the language and some of the scripting. For me, is like, okay, cool. I'm sure as a girl you could go and enjoy Barbie movie for all the comics and all that kind of stuff. But what message are we sending to young men?
For sure.
You know, because my brother, he has all boys. And he brought it to my attention where he's like, it's so hard these days to find a film that makes a man a hero. And there's nothing wrong with a woman being heroic, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of a man being presented as stupid or lame or ignorant or dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think my take on that, I'd love to hear you guys, but my take on the Snow White one has to be, sure, make a film about a woman being independent, strong, and, you know, finding her true self or whatever the language is that she wants. Why take and corrupt a classic,
For sure,
Prince Charming moment? And undo that work. That's the intent behind that, is to undo what's been done. Instead of just going, hey, let's write a new script, because there's no limit of creativity. You can write a whole new script.
Right.
But to take something that was done and let's undo it for the next generation, and let's wind it back, because this generation grew up with the Prince Charming, you know, rescuing the princess and bringing her back to life and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and it just, I think another element is like, if there was proof in the pudding, then great. But like every one of the movies that they're doing, they bomb. They don't make profit.
They bomb.
So now that becomes propaganda, because propaganda operates at a loss. Like we just do it because it operates as a loss because it's about changing ideologies and culture and all that. And we're going to take all the financial hits, right? So it'd be one thing where I'd start evaluating as a pastor if I was like, well, every movie that they're doing is just blockbuster hits. So clearly culture's going that way. So I'm just not going to comment on it, and I'll just keep moving in this direction. Like that'd be one thing. But it's another thing where it's like nobody wants it. Like nobody's going to watch this stuff. No one's going to view this stuff. So create new storylines and attempt to make a profit rather than taking the stuff that people are familiar with, that we know what you're trying to do. You're trying to go off nostalgia. You're trying to get us to go in there. So then there's a level of indoctrination that will occur with our young people. But it's like, but as parents, have we not made this clear? Like, we're not going to take them to these things. So even the point where I heard with, there's a couple things that are just odd about the Snow White movie. Number one, it's not 7 dwarves. It's seven bandits.
Yeah,
And they're multicultural.
Yeah.
They're multi.
I thought you were going to say like little people or something.
No, they're
like,
bandits.
They're gone right away.
Oh, it's just gone.
And there's only one dwarf. There's no dwarf. They're not dwarves.
Yeah, there's no dwarves.
Weren't they miners originally? Like they worked in the mine or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Why
were like
didn't you go with
workers.
7 miners?
Yeah. So they're like.
They've made it bandits. Okay.
I think it's bandits. It's something like that.
Right.
Odd. And then there's girls and guys, and they're all ethnicities, all genders, and everything like that. So they're now the 7 bandits or whatever it is. And so now little people are going like, hey, there only are a few historic movies
we get to be
that
heroes.
we could actually act
Right.
in.
Right.
You know, and now for inclusivity, you've excluded us, little people who are like real people who exist in this world,
Right.
who you could easily give the most famous little people actors in the game an opportunity,
or even a,
you know,
or
to be
even
in this, right?
or even a what do they call it, a leg in, or when your first step in, your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Because we have a African American little person who's been attending our church for years and years, and he's trying to become an actor.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, like
That's
that
your
could
foot in the
have
door.
been his foot
That was
in the
it.
door.
That was the moment.
You know, and so
Yeah.
so if you're all, you know, it's all under the guise of woke, and
Yep.
it's like, well,
Yep.
this is an African American little person.
This is diversity,
that-
equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, that
Yes.
could
in
have
the
had
purest
this,
form.
this spot that was taken from him. And who's more, what do they say, marginalized than
Yeah.
little people?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. And now they don't get that opportunity at all.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I would even be like, even if they opened it up to other genders and still stuck with dwarves, I'd be like, okay, that's a little modern take.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. You know,
Sure.
like, you know, it's not going to be all the same guys that we knew, grumpy and this and that. And, you know, maybe they still are, but it's going to be a girl, but they're still a little person. You know, it's still Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, you know, like we can rock with that. No, they just completely threw that out. I think the movie's just called Snow White or whatever it is. And then the other thing, which is like, now you're just changing the whole storylines.
You changed the whole storyline.
The
Yeah.
prince never kisses her when she's asleep because when
Right.
she's asleep, she's not able to give consent.
Oh boy.
So,
So
they've
Wow.
eliminated. They've eliminated
Wow.
like the crux of the
Oh,
story.
that's crazy.
They've eliminated the crux of it. It's not even the story
Hey,
anymore.
you gotta be me too.
Right. The
Yo.
prince is like,
He saves her life. She wakes up and then she goes to the courts and sues him. That would be the ending.
Oh, that's amazing.
and then he loses his kingdom.
Yeah, she takes it all.
Oh my God.
That's incredible. That is incredible.
That
That's
would
so
be
good.
mean, what are we
that would be
doing?
the ultimate
you know-
woke story.
I want to share some perspective because I have 3 daughters as well. So I advocate for my daughters to know that their identity is in Christ. You are a leader. You don't have to depend on a man, et cetera, et cetera. But my oldest daughter just got married. So we would go on walks and have conversations about biblical submission to a man because
Right.
that's part of my role as a father to teach that. So while I want my daughters to lead, while I want my daughters to be in their calling and their purpose, there is a covering biblically of
Right.
male headship.
Right.
So there's this as a father, how do I empower my daughters to be all God has called them to be? But if God has called them to be married, this is God's play, and we are to run that play. When I see what's happening in culture where we're trying to just use the name Snow White and then just try to create a scenario that are going to change the next generation, I think about the book of Exodus to where Pharaoh was trying to kill all the boys. Mm-hmm. But what ends up happening is the females, it says they feared God and they didn't kill those kids.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take, because like we're living in a society where we have corrupt leadership that allows this penetration of this women empowerment and then to cancel out what men look like.
Yeah.
But if you look at Exodus, what ends up happening after that, after those women spare the sons, then he's like, okay, throw them all in the now. But then you have a sister that is protecting her brother. So all through the biblical narrative, we see that, okay, we can work together as gender, but at the same token, it comes from fearing God. We're in a nation that doesn't fear God. And once you don't fear God, there are no values. There's no submission. There's no freedom. So then you go, oh, it's not 1938 no more. This is what it's going to be now. But wait, okay, so how will that woman be protected if there's crisis? Like,
Yeah,
does that person
yeah.
have to depend on anyone? Like, so that's where I
Yeah.
struggle, because I acknowledge what she said about, like, hey, we don't have to have this dependency. You're right, because our sufficiency is in Christ. But at the same token, to erase manhood, I take offense to that.
And I think that's
hard.
what it is. It's erasing because, they act like that Hollywood has never had strong, independent women. I mean, even going back to Star Wars, you had Princess Leia, who was a strong, independent woman.
Yeah.
You have Terminator, where you have, and I'm sure Corey can just spout,
Spout
tons.
them, Corey. What are they?
What? Give us some.
Alien, Tomb Raider, Kill Bill,
Terminator, Kill Bill.
You know,
Yeah,
you got
like
them all.
so they're acting like this is some big but it's not what they're adding, it's what they're taking away.
Yeah.
Where
Exactly.
you still had Arnold Schwarzenegger and what was the woman's name in Terminator 2? That was
Sarah Connor.
that was tough, bad A,
right.
So you had Arnold, and so you had the strong male figure, but you also had a strong female figure, and nobody ever watched that and thought to themselves, "Oh, I don't want my daughter watching this because she'll feel like an accessory." It's
Yeah.
like all sexes enjoyed it, all sexes, and got value and worth given to them in that role. So it's really what they're taking away. They're taking away the masculine male.
We have a
from
picture
a
of
lot
the
these.
dwarves. Put it, for those watching us on YouTube, can see it. Gabe, put it. There's Snow White in the corner, and then you see all the dwarves up on top. So they're all just like
Then there's one dwarf.
there's one dwarf, and then the rest are basically minorities who are not dwarves.
Can we
and then
zoom in?
Men
Is
and
there-
women.
is there
I
a-
think Gabe will be able to. Or, yeah. There we go. He's zooming. Zoom it.
Oh, and let me say
Keep the
this
zoom up.
one more example because I have kids. Is the new Spider-Man movie with Miles
Across
and
the universe,
and the other
Spider-Verse?
Spider-Woman, and they seem to have a good balance with that too, of the
Gwen Stacy.
Gwen
and-
Stacy's
and
character
Miles.
being strong, independent, and
Yeah.
then Miles. They didn't take anything away from Miles as a masculine male figure.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be a good balance, and it made tons of money.
Yeah.
So what are the movies that are making tons of money seem to uphold kind of these traditional values of masculinity.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
like you said, look at the money. Look at the money. Is none of these movies that devalue male? Very few of them, if any of them, are actually profiting and making money
Almost none.
from this
I'll
sort
tell
of
you what
tactic.
happened in my house. My daughter's 27, and I have two other daughters that are 11 and 9. And what I loved about when they would hang out, my oldest daughter, Eileen, would have my younger daughters watch movies together, like old movies from back in the day or old cartoons that she used to watch. One of the cartoons Eileen used to watch is called The Proud Family. It was a black family. It was in the 80s. And now, so Eileen, Faith, and Trinity are watching The Proud Family. The Proud Family just recently came out with another version called The Proud Family Louder and Prouder. I didn't know about this. So Faith and Trinity
I
are
hope
just...
that's not the prouder I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh,
So Faith and
it's-
Trinity
Oh,
are just
wow.
watching what their sister told them to
Dang.
watch. And I'm in the
course it is.
kitchen, and I'm seeing a boy wearing lipstick, and he ends up being the most popular kid in school because he had courage.
Right.
And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because they're
Yeah.
louder and prouder. So it's just
Yeah.
taking things that... And it just crept in my home like that. If I wasn't intentional to see what was going on, and my daughter's 11 and 9, they don't know.
I mean, it's a clear agenda, right? There's a propaganda. There's a mission that, whether it's the LGBTQ, the feminist movement, it's very, very clear agenda. Let's undo, not just let's redo, but let's undo. Let's take that old family. Let's take Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Let's rewrite it. Let's rewrite the narrative for the next generation. I think when it comes, let's just I could comment on the raising daughters to be strong women. It comes from, and you mentioned male headship, right? What the feminist movement has done they have de-emphasized the power of a female role. They've actually said that a female's role in a family unit, in the house, in leadership is not good. You need the male role. That's what they said. But really, what if they actually cared about women, they would help them see the power of their role, right? That their role in a marriage, there is male headship. That's very biblical. But your job as a woman of God is not even to be an echo of your man. You're meant to be an amplifier. If you're meant to just be, if you see submission as I'm an echo, so whatever you say, whatever you think, I think, then you're actually going to always see yourself as secondary. To be submitted doesn't mean you're secondary. To submitted means I am positioned to amplify what we do here. It's the same with a campus setting. You know, you're your Pomona campus right now from ALFC. You could literally see your campus as, well, we're just an echo of the main campus.
Oh, no.
Or you say, hey, we've got the privilege of amplifying the main campus. Then that role becomes significant and actually very key in the success of the church. It's the same in a marriage. If I just see myself as if a female just sees themselves as an echo, they're going to miss the fact that you get to amplify all the values, you get to amplify everything that we stand for, every direction we're going, and actually take that privileged position. But it's the feminist movement that is...
And there's a saying in critique of that to support what you're saying is women are becoming the men that they want to marry.
Yeah, exactly.
So women are becoming the men that they want to marry.
Right.
And it's because they're taking on themselves masculine traits.
Right.
And biblically, we are complementary. And so women have their unique, distinct
That's
roles.
the word, complementary.
Yeah, and men have their unique, distinct roles. And so women are being dissatisfied. They can't find a man, or they're dissatisfied in their marriage because they become the men that they want to marry.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which like, and that's like where the danger is, not only for culture, society, but for men and women, because then men's proxy will be laziness. Because,
of course it will.
Like the moment I have to kick back, and that's one of the things like I always go back and forth with Ashley, my wife, because anyone who knows Ashley is strong. Like not only just emotionally, but like physically she is strong. She is tall. So she has the ability to really, like, she has the ability on a physical sense to fully take care of herself, right?
Yeah.
So she could muscle anything. She could move the couch. She could bring in the trash cans. She could, I mean, stuff that would normally you'd be like, oh, that's a man. Like Ashley's like, I don't need Adam to do this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell her like, hey, you could partner with me.
Yeah.
Allow me to help you with these things because if you don't, I will just come home and kick my feet up.
Yeah.
And then that's where chaos will ensue.
For sure.
Is if you say, I'm gonna, now it's another thing if she's saying, well, but I keep asking you and like you never do this stuff. Okay, then there's responsibility on me. But for her, if she just continues to go, man, I could do this with the kids. I can move this. Adam, like we're good. You just provide financially. I'll handle everything else. Then I'll go, but then I'll get lazy. And then that actually isn't going to garner respect from me for you. That's actually going to make me lose respect because now there is a miscongruency in our family dynamic that you have to let me be a man. Let me protect you. You know, she'll be like, oh, it's good. I'll learn how to do these things and I don't have to worry about you. And I'm like, no, I gotta protect you. There is a switch that has to trigger in my head that I protect this family. I lay my life on this family. And she's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, she has to, that part of that, I think what you're saying is amplifying in that unity is like, I recognize we're different. I also recognize I have to give you the space for you to be a man and me to be a woman.
For sure.
And if we try to switch this, then we're going to see chaos in our home and we're going to see chaos in our marriage.
That's what Caleb was saying. You can't complement each other if you're competing with each other.
Yeah.
And so when the woman is trying to do the man's role, it becomes competition.
Yeah.
Rather than complementing, you bring something different, I bring something different. Together we're amplifying way more than we could do apart. So let's complement and let's not compete.
Yeah. And let's show our kids that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that when they see the movies, they're going like, well, that looks nice. I saw Barbie. It looks nice, but that's not going to be me. I want a kin who I could do life with, who could be the prince, who could be the provider, who could be the protector. I'm okay with wanting that. And in the same way, a guy can say, I want a woman who can be feminine, who can love herself in the sense of confidence in herself.
And none of us are saying like women can't be successful, business, like whatever Barbie's got going on, lawyer, doctor, president,
had nothing to do with that stuff.
It just doesn't have to be at the expense of the man being the dumb, lazy, do nothing person.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like both can succeed.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
She can even be the main provider.
Yes.
It don't matter.
Yeah.
Provision from
Sugar
a man.
mama. Let's go.
I'd be down with that, you know. Provision
Yeah.
is not a financial sense. As a man, to provide
Yeah.
means that you are articulating vision and direction for your family in the way that God has purposed you to do.
Well, that's leadership.
You know,
Leadership is servitude.
And that's
Yeah.
what I try to do with my daughter. She, this isn't the 1950s. This isn't the 1500s. Where the priority for raising a daughter is she lives with you and you take care of her until you can find a suitable suitor that can take care of her.
Right.
You know, nowadays we live in the 21st century. I want her to go to school. I want her to be educated. I want her to have a good paying career. I want her to be financially independent and not depend upon a man. So
more
we're
than
by no
likely-
means taking away from
Yeah,
that.
and more than likely, if you live in
know.
Rancho Cucamonga or Silicon Valley, it's more than likely going to take a dual income house
Yeah.
to kind of reach the goals and dreams that you want to reach as a family.
Yeah.
That's where I think everyone mixes it up. It's like the moment you start talking about marriage roles and identity roles, it's like immediately it equals finances but I don't get to pursue my dreams. It's like it has nothing to do with that stuff, you know. Like now you can easily abuse those things and you could go into really unhealthy tracks, but you could do that with anything,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Being talking to young men all the time, it's like, hey, well, I'm doing this job and me and my wife love it. She's going to go be a nurse, so she's going to make 4 times as much as me.
Yeah.
Does that make me less of a man? It's like,
no.
no, are you making you less of a man because
Yeah.
of that? Like, because that should have nothing to do with your ability to have an identity and a voice and an authority in your home. Like, you can still, when everyone gets home, you can still lead prayer for your food with your family.
Actually, the worst thing that a
you know-
man could do would be to go, I just got to find a career that pays more.
Yeah.
Because you'll actually be unhappy and you'll actually serve your family terribly. What
sure.
would be better is, hey, let's pursue passion. Let's do what we're passionate about, what we're called to do, what we're gifted to do. Money will always be attracted to passion. When you do something well and you do it to the best, you actually find money will find its way to you. At the end of the day, what is better, regardless of opportunity to maybe your wife makes more money or whatever, great. But are we both passionate about what we do?
Yeah.
And then our lifestyle is amplifying each other, encouraging each other. And I think what we're seeing with that clip, like, it's clear propaganda.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a narrative.
Yeah.
So our response definitely has to be, let's teach our kids.
Yeah.
What are we seeing here? What's the message? And hopefully boycott it enough that they just go, we just lose way too much money to push this propaganda anymore.
Yeah,
Right,
maybe we should start having good storytelling, and maybe we should start really pursuing things that are healthy for people, because that's eventually like what they're gonna. I mean, that's what people are consuming. You look at Top Gun Maverick, right? Like the latest best movie that's ever done in probably the past 5 years in terms of finance and other areas. You look at it and you're like, man, this is an authentic story. The girl finds the guy. They fall in love. He's doing what he loves at the highest form of what he loves.
He's a beast.
He's willing to risk it all for the sake of honor and integrity.
Loves his country.
Loves his country. America, shout out,
Let's
Eagle
go.
scream, everything,
Excellence.
yeah. But you just look at the clear nature of the storyline, which is not fancy. It's not overexposed. It's the young kid who's made for war, who just wants to go and fight, and then he ends up finding himself and says, this is both, all the young people in there are just hungry. They just want to go out, fight, kill, and then by the end, it's more about honor, integrity.
For sure.
He honors an elder in his life. Like, you just look at this, you go, this is healthy for a community.
Yep.
It's healthy in a family.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise repents for leaving her at one point. It's like, it's not going to happen again.
Right.
I understand what I value. Everything you look, you're like, oh, that's how a man ought to be. He wasn't perfect. He had a lot of failures. He had a lot of mistakes. He owned them.
Yeah.
He fought for forgiveness. He led well. Okay, this is a great story, and everyone is strong in it. And even in that movie, they had girls that were pilots that were some of the best in it.
Yes.
And no one said, like, man, those girls, they shouldn't be pilots. And if someone did, then you're weird. You're a misogynist at that point, right? So that's something I'd want. If I only have sons, but if I had daughters, I'd be like,
Still time.
before you watch Snow White, go watch Top Gun Maverick. Go be a pilot before you go and be a princess that leads a country that doesn't need anyone. Be a pilot. It's a great.
Well,
career,
I just learned this, and I was just flabbergasted that Russia in the World War II. I'm a big student of
know
Russia.
what he's gonna say.
I just like Russia, but I'm a big fan. But I just learned this. No, this bamboozled me because I'm
Flabbergasted and bamboozled.
I'm reading history. Well, I'm watching a history documentary on Netflix, right? And so I'm learning about how the Allies defeated Hitler, but I didn't know that Russia, one of the key elements to their defeating of the Nazi forces was because they were the only army that had women fighters.
Oh, really?
And they did, because Russia's very harsh terrain, and so all of their citizenry fought, and the women were tough as nails as they were fighting in the snow, in the trenches.
Yeah.
But they were able to, a key element to their defeat of the Nazis, Russia, was the women forces.
Well, and I think there's a new show coming out.
I think America beat the Nazis. Just
no.
Team effort.
Russia lost more. Russia had more.
They had massive
fatalities.
They had the most fatalities.
The biggest cost.
I passed my naturalization test. We are back-to-back World War champions. All right.
Well, I don't know if I'm trying to be a missionary to Russia. That's why I'm trying to get my passport because Putin's offered American citizens to be citizens.
You probably can't hold dual citizenship.
Since they're so evil, I want to go to Russia and I want to be a missionary. Supposedly they're so evil, they tell us.
Yeah.
So,
Are they evil?
And embrace.
I don't know. I don't want to get into that, but yeah.
You're gonna reel it in.
No, they're a Christian nation, though.
There you go.
Yeah, they're
actually
Orthodox, Eastern
Catholic
Orthodox. Yeah. So, shout out.
So this is where you go when you go molecular into things that actually need to perform and matter, and you start to see the importance of the roles, right? So in the case of what you're saying, World War II, also for us, like engaging women as nurses and other things like that, like we wouldn't have been able to really build our teams the way we did without them. If you credit and study World War II, like women going into nurses and medics in the field was like an insane advantage to us.
Yeah, right.
And them learning those things.
True.
I think the difference there, though, in that beautiful little Russia example is I think it shows you, okay, women are obviously able to fight and do those things.
Yeah.
I don't think Russian leadership were thinking women empowerment, though. I think they're more thinking communism, you'll do what we tell you to do.
Well, we need more people. We're taking too many losses.
Women, you're fighting.
Well, here's the thing, though.
I was trying to give them credit.
You can't say anything wrong about China and Russia.
I was trying to be nice to women. I was trying to build up women. That was the whole point. More than building up, I wanted to build up women.
Yeah, they were out there to help win. So there's a new show. I don't know if it's going to be woke or not, but it's called Lioness. And
definitely going to be woke.
I know, right? When you hear it, you go, "Uh-oh, is it a Lisa Bevere sermon or is it going to be a show?" So it's a new show. I love John and Lisa Bevere.
I love them.
So it's a new show called Lioness, but what it is it's I don't fully know like how the premise deep, but apparently it's how on the field between CIA operatives and FBI operatives and stuff like that, there's a huge conglomerate of women who are in the military and in the CIA, and it's their full job to embrace their femininity for the sake of war and for the sake of information. So they're called lionesses because they're sent out to the field.
Oh yeah,
and they have some main jobs. They're meant to bring comfort to women in that other country and extrapolate information from them by embrace. Tell me, girl. What's even to someone who's like a woman who's Muslim in the Middle East. Like, what's it like? They just immediately they're meant to embrace that. Tell me what's going on. What's blah blah blah. How women talk, right? But they're meant to match their energy of conversation, and in the same sense, they're also told to embrace their physicality as well. And so a lot of them are in other countries and they're going out to dinner with politicians and stuff like that. And it's this idea of, it's the Delilah stuff and everything like that. But it's the sense of like when you molecularly look at stuff and if you want to get a job done, whether it's good or bad, The only way you do that is by truly embracing the differences between men and women. Like that's the only way the job gets done.
Right.
When you look at like just the
I see where you're going.
you know,
with this.
like
yeah.
you just look at what Disney's doing and stuff like it's contrary to what is essentially natural, which you would think anyone who is secular, who is quote unquote controlled by science, would be exasperating things based off of science, which is men and women are different. The job can get done by both, but they get done very differently.
Yeah.
So why don't you just respect that, honor that, and elevate that, and make, whether it be
a good
movies,
point.
TV show, just make it good in that way.
Yeah.
The show, and again, I don't know how they're going to spin the show, but if we look at it in truth, like the show Lioness is not women in full garb military gear kicking in doors, you know, throwing grenades and then like rescuing children. The men are doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's never been a woman who's ever been able to pass the SEAL team test.
Right.
So the men are doing that, but then the women are still, you know,
They get the intel.
Yeah, they're getting intel. They're embracing their femininity. They're taking men
They're
out.
on the front line.
Like they're, you know,
Behind enemy lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And equal in the sense of pay often and position and title and rank.
Right.
They have it. It's not like it's there. It's just the role is completely different. So it does not exist. It'd be one thing if someone can begin to show me examples of where these things you're seeing on TV and movies actually exist.
Yeah.
In real
Where
life.
where the guy wearing lipstick is the most popular kid in school, and that's happening. Now they're trying to make that happen because the media is trying to build society off of that. But that's not real. The guy who's putting lipstick on him in the Proud Family or Prouder in real life, that's the guy
So
who's
here's
like
the
really
thing.
hurt and broken.
What they're
you know?
suggesting then, what the woke mob are suggesting, and what they think is that society is constructed a way it is because of the original Snow Whites and those movies. They're saying because they portrayed a helpless woman who needed rescuing from a man, that's why we have the construct of male-female traditionalism.
Patriarchy.
That's what they're thinking. They're actually misaligned right there. It wasn't Hollywood that shaped that. Hollywood followed what the natural order was.
They mirrored it.
They mirrored it, right? And so they thought, well, if that, they're assuming that is what constructed the male roles, the classic female roles, those kinds of things. So their thought is, well, let's undo it through Hollywood. Let's undo it through that narrative.
And my favorite response to like the feminist that some radical feminists say is, you know, we don't need a man. I don't need a man anymore.
Right.
But it's like, okay, but everything around your life, you needed a man in order to survive and exist. What about the roads that you drove on? What about the
Sure.
car that you drive? Who built that? A man. The roads, who built that? A man. The house that you live in, who built that? Men built that. You know, the phone that you're using, who built that? Men built that. And so it's complementary in the sense that men build things in society that makes society function. Women are responsible for the social and emotional aspect of rearing children, of social work, such as a lot of nurses, a lot of teachers, jobs that have to do with engaging with other people. Women tend to be, that's the jobs women tend to seek and pursue, and they excel in, whereas the stuff that requires building and creating is men. And so we need to learn to appreciate the unique roles and this mindset of I don't need a man. It's you don't live in the real world. Like you are denying reality by saying that. Because like I said, all of these things essential to exist in society are men. The farmers. Who are the farmers? Did you eat today? Okay, who are the farmers? You know, so you just go on, and you realize that, you know, we need each other. We're complementary.
Yeah.
We can't
We do need each
despise,
other.
alienate, hate each other.
I
you know?
agree with you. I think we do need each other. I think that even in all those examples that you gave, there are actually women in those settings. Okay, there are female engineers. There are female farmers. There are female construction workers. Okay, but that is more rare, and that is a unique setting.
Yeah,
Okay.
outliers, anomalies.
It's more outliers and anomalies, and that's totally fine. If that's the desire of their heart, and I hope that is their desire to do that, because naturally, biologically, as you gave a good example, that mothering and child rearing, that is a natural desire. I mean, you take my brother's little boys. He's got 2 daughters and a son. The 2 daughters come first. The son's the youngest. The house is full of dolls, play clothes, all that kind of stuff. He comes in doesn't want any of it. Just naturally sits out the front,
Yeah.
watches the garbage truck every day.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
right,
So there is some natural biology that goes toward those desires, testosterone, all that kind of stuff in the development. So
Yeah,
natural
right,
career paths lend towards those kinds of things, right?
Right.
Some danger.
Yeah.
You know, some things that are going to be, you know, require working with your hands, just problem solving, engineering, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Naturally, things that women are, let's be honest, way better than men at. Okay, that we're going to be all thumbs in that setting, right? Because it requires a deeper level of discernment. It requires natural female skills that they have, that they are blessed with by God. Okay, now the outliers, hopefully, they're there by their own volition. They weren't there pushed there as an agenda. And that they're the scapegoat to go,
for sure.
no, we need to be in construction. So you need to go down that pathway, honey. You know, now they're like, oh, I'm proving a point, but I hate this.
Yeah.
And so there is outliers in those settings. And we're not saying that women can't do that. If that's the desire of their heart and you want to be a coder, engineer, go for it. If you want to be a farmer and work out in the sun and push heavy machinery around,
Yeah.
go for it.
In the same way, if there's a man who wants to be a teacher, go for it.
100%.
But more than likely, you're going to be higher on the empathy end, and
You know, nurture.
maybe how you were raised lends you to that. But it's definitely a lot less than. And so if women tomorrow decided, hey, we're not going to be teachers anymore, we would be in trouble in school. In the same way, if men decided, hey, I'm not running line anymore for electrical grids.
It's even in our house.
we'd
My
be in
girls will
trouble,
scream,
you know, like-
Dad, there's a spider. So I'll run out
Literally.
and I'll grab the spider. And they were like, but don't kill it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and my son's like, peel the legs apart.
Exactly.
Rip it apart. You know, like,
exactly. So they want me to get rid of it, don't kill it. Because
Yeah.
the empathy
Yeah.
is like, I don't want it in my space, but please, like, just, you know, don't hurt it.
Yeah.
But a lad is like,
oh, my son's like, get the shoe.
Yes.
Chop it out. Let
Look
me
at
see
its
it.
guts.
Look, 100%.
One of the greatest social proofs of this is the most, the feminist country is Sweden, the most woke, liberal, feminist. You would say the country with the greatest equal opportunity for men and women. And you actually have the most disparity with men choosing certain jobs and women choosing certain jobs.
wow.
So because it's biology at the end of the day, it's human nature. Women gravitate towards certain fields, and men volitionally, by their own choosing, gravitate towards certain fields. So you would think that, it's the most feminist, it's the most equal country, therefore you'd have 50-50 construction, where you have 50-50 tech, you'd have 50-50 teachers, 50-50 nurses, but it's not. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
It's actually, you see more of a disparity.
I think when I've heard the term "I don't need a man" from a woman, my mind goes to like relationally, like where a woman says, I can create my own life and I don't have to depend on like a male headship or male provision, protection, blah, 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 blah. And with me having daughters, that's where, for me, a part of me is raising my daughters to not think that discipleship, being a disciple of Christ, is just preparing you to be a wife. No, I want you to look like Christ. So but I want to model marriage in a way that is healthy, so you can see two disciples that are right. But I think when somebody says I don't need anything, I think that the root of that is pride. Whether that's a woman saying to a man, whether it's me saying I don't need no help or this and that, because even Jesus said I can do nothing on my own. I mean, we're talking about Jesus, right? So the community aspect tells us like, hey, let's rally together. There are some things that you are better than me at. There are some things that you just do way better than me. And there are some things that I can add value to your life.
For sure.
How do we work together in that? That's what I want to teach my daughters. Because what people don't recognize in marriage, there are seasons. So what you said about provision, I lost my job for 2 years.
Right.
And my wife didn't treat me any different because her treatment of me wasn't predicated upon how much money I made.
Sure.
It's our values.
Right.
So and when I'm anytime my daughters have a unhealthy type of independence, I want to lead them more towards Christ as opposed to, well, don't say that because a man, this is a, what if their road doesn't involve them being married? And I think we have to be okay with that as pastors, where it's like there are healthy single people that will not get married. There are healthy divorced people that are just getting closer to Jesus.
And I like to say like that was Paul's encouragement for everybody to remain single. I mean, I joke, but it's like if Paul had what he wanted, there would be no future children
Yeah.
in the church
Yeah.
because his preference. And so, I say that because a lot of times traditional conservatives, politically or in the church, we idolize marriage. We can idolize marriage, and it's like, well, first of all, the Apostle Paul actually encouraged singleness over marriage, and for various reasons. I mean, even though marriage obviously still has its blessings, and God encourages us to get married, but like you're saying, it's like it's important that we don't idolize marriage or anything above Christ, above our service of Christ. Ultimately, that's where our
Well, it has a
dependence
purpose.
and
Marriage
worship
has a purpose.
comes.
You can't idolize it because it's actually got a function and a purpose. There's
Yeah.
a clear
Yeah.
purpose to it that serves the purpose of heaven, the kingdom of God. But I got a question.
Yeah.
Women can do a lot of things,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
We believe there's no
Yeah.
limit to what a woman can do. If they want to
Yep.
do engineering, they want to do all these things, great, go for it. It's probably Caleb. Can women preach?
Oh, shoot.
Whoa! Shut it down! Shut it down!
That's all the time we got, folks.
He hung up his
Like
headphones.
Bugs Bunny.
You hung up your headphones.
I think we got a technical glitch, guys.
Peace out. I'm like George Costanza. I'm quitting while I'm ahead.
In post, they're gonna add like a crickle and then a PSA, system error.
Love it. I love it. I love it.
Oh God. Oh
Yeah.
lordy. Well,
Caleb?
I attend a church that believes women should teach. Our church holds, but very political answer, right? Well, Abundant Living Family Church, of which I pastor, we hold.
Our board and deacons and every elders have decided.
Therefore, does not matter what I personally believe in. No,
I forget the terminology because there's complementarian, which is full force. Women could senior pastor, lead pastor, all that stuff, preach, teach, and then they're
Egalitarian.
Is that what I'm saying? Egalitarian, and then there's soft egalitarian, right? Which still believes
Well, no, you got the egalitarian, you got the complementarian.
complementarian.
Well, this is big now with Rick Warren, right? With
Yeah,
Rick
yeah, yeah.
Warren and Al Mohler at
Yep.
Southern Baptist Convention,
Yeah.
the biggest
repented.
Protestant denomination
Yeah.
is up in arms right now, about to split over this issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, do you know about this more? Okay, so I'm not too.
Yeah, so it happened because my good friends, Andy and Stacy, who are in the Silicon Valley, they started Echo Church. They recently became the lead pastors of Saddleback Church. So they handed on their church to my good friend Felipe. Now they're at Saddleback Church, taking over from Pastor
Rick Warren.
Rick. Rick, who traditionally Southern Baptist in all his 20-something plus years of ministry, has held the position that women cannot teach, preach from the pulpit.
or be pastors for that matter,
Or
right?
be pastors, yeah. I think it's pretty
Ordained as a
extreme.
pastor.
Yeah, I think it's pretty extreme.
Yeah, right.
Very hardline kind of
They
perspective.
could be a deaconess. Usually, it stops at deaconess, like
Right. Right.
in the church.
So now you've got
hierarchy.
Andy, who brings in his wife as teaching pastor.
Okay.
Okay, which becomes pretty cataclysmic within the traditional Baptist convention,
Right.
where they then kick out Saddleback from the
and
convention.
vote. And the way it has to be done is they have to
Yeah.
vote it, right? All
Correct.
members. Yeah.
Correct. And so, but on the heels of that, Pastor Rick has come out and said, I changed my perspective. And
He went
I
and studied
repent.
it and everything
Went
like
and
that.
studied, actually did a deep dive, really started, because he realized all his teaching had come from the Baptist one-line convention. So everything was a supporting narrative of why he viewed that. Until he went out of that, actually started to do some deeper research of his own, not from his traditional library that he had drawn from for the last 25 plus years. Because you can do that as a preacher. You can definitely, start in a tribe.
Fit into your bubble.
And then everything you do is echoed in that little chamber. He kind of went out of that, realized, oh my God, I've literally probably limited so many women because of a hardline perspective. He came out, I think he did a pretty bold thing. He repented. He apologized to all the women that have been under his ministry over the last 20-something years. I think it's good to do that. I think for more anything just himself, and to make amends right now. And I think for him, it was a bold statement, but it is a big argument all of a sudden again.
Yeah,
Do
right.
you know what the result of the whole thing was?
The result is that they're still out of the Baptist
They got
movement.
kicked out. That was the result.
Yeah.
They voted at the SBC convention in March or May, and it was
Unanimous, I think.
90%, only 10,
nearly,
10%. And on the only thing was
But that was the debate between Mueller and that was going on?
Yeah. And the
Oh,
vote was
okay,
the
okay.
vote was basically in the sense where Rick was basically saying, let us keep our conviction, but there are people here in the Baptist movement who are allowed to, do different things when it comes to baptism or when it comes to communion. Like there's enough room in the SBC
okay.
that we've made, because we didn't want church splits, denomination splits. Yeah. He said, like, we've made amends in the past for what seemed to be far lesser issues, or even greater in that sense. And we've said, hey, you could still be part of the SBC. We just, as the SBC, we still hardline believe this. But if your church deviates a little in the sense that, you want to become, complementarian? Mm-hmm. Complementarian, then we'll be okay with it as long as you still agree in the theological tenets.
Right.
And less about the doctrinal, ecclesiastical tenets.
Right.
And that's all Rick was bidding for. Like, I'm not saying the SBC changed their belief on this. I'm just saying let us stay in as a complementarian. That's it. And then 80 or 90% voted, no, you're out. You're out of the denomination. Only 10%, which is like, I think the vote was 10,000 people. So 9,000 voted them out. 1,000 voted them to keep. So they were expelled. Well, yeah, only men are allowed to vote. So it's going to be a pretty one-sided vote, right? So that's what happened. So, as Adam does, I know Andy too. And so, they got kicked out of their denomination. Now, as far as I could tell within the church itself, because there's a lot of churches out right now that are, like SBC or denominational, and they hide it because to be a denominational church doesn't benefit your church growth nowadays. So, they were a sleeper denomination. Like no one in the church who attends Saddleback knew they were SBC.
And it's not going to affect the church at all.
Yeah, no.
It's more of like a
growing more than ever.
sort of a fight, or what?
Well, it's
what
just
was
internally between their governance and stuff like that. So I'm sure if at some point you went to membership, I don't know for sure, membership, they would say, hey, we're associated with the SBC. Anyways, here at Saddleback, we believe, it'd be like a asterisk thing.
Throwaway.
Yeah.
They, in the same sense, our church is non-denominational, but we have
alliance,
roots. You would
alliances
never know,
are
right?
important, though.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think it establishes some sort of an alliance too for the future, being a part of some organization, some denomination.
There's that, and they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a lot of people don't know how many SBCs, and I could be wrong, so people go check. But as far as I could tell, as far as I remember, I think Furtick came out of the SBC.
Yeah.
Right in our backyard, Matt Brown with Sandals. I think he's SBC. I think Harvest with Greg Laurie came out of the SBC.
Yeah.
Erwin McManus, SBC.
Right.
So
Andy and Stacy were originally, I believe.
Were they? Andy and Stacy Wood. So there's a lot of sleeper churches out there that are either Assemblies of God, SBC, or whatever, and it's on the bottom of their website in micro print.
And I think that the core of the matter is whatever being a part of an alliance or being a part of a movement. I think that's important when you're starting a church, for validation to say, hey, I'm under accountability. Yeah. When you're a Saddleback church and you've got all the history that you have and you're so established, I don't think it really matters because everyone knows the ministry content, the doctrinal ideas, theology, that kind of stuff. The bigger issue is around the revelation, right? Yeah. And you can hold a hardline view on women in ministry or women in teaching or women pastors until you have a personal experience with a woman who ministers in a way that brings revelation power and unlocks something, to go, oh, what does that do with your theology when you actually have a revelational moment from some teaching that came from a woman? Yeah. That you may have previously never experienced that because they were never allowed.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what we're seeing with Rick Warren. Okay. Yeah. There was an experience that really challenged his doctrinal beliefs and his theology.
And I was the same way. I mean, in 2011, I went to the Hillsong Conference with our other brother Nathan, and I think the setup speakers, if I remember correctly, I think it was Furtick and Phil Pringle and Joyce Meyer and a few others, and I got up and left for every Joyce Meyer session because I didn't at that time. At that time, I didn't believe in women preachers. And so,
Wow.
because I came out of the MacArthur camp, I had to see.
Even with Joyce, I thought Joyce would get a pass. You
No
know,
way.
like-
No. Not at that time, right? So I literally, and Nathan, who's with me, like feeling so uncomfortable because every time she goes to be in, because they don't tell you who's speaking at what. So then they make the introduction. I'm like, well, time to go. And I would get up and I would leave. That's not abundant living stance, and it never historically has been.
Right.
But that was my season when I was at Grace Community or Grace, and then under
makes
MacArthur.
sense. That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
I was hardline, like they
Sure.
couldn't be anything, right? And be outside of a deaconess. So I get up and leave every time, until, like you said, I got out of the framework, which first started with me with moments where people had words of knowledge and a tongues experience that immediately made me kind of reevaluate. We've talked about it on this podcast before, and I started engaging tongues for the first time, and then I reapproached the scriptures not that the scriptures changed. I approached them out of my box that I was in.
Exactly.
And it was like, well, let me look at what the other theologians who are well respected interpret these verses as. Okay, now let me put it into praxis. So then I started practicing tongues. I saw the value of it. I saw God move in it and all these other things like that. That like, okay, I think there's validity here. I can articulate scripturally why I believe it's true. And then it was like, then I felt God being like, so when you gonna do that with women?
There you go.
And I was like,
Great challenge.
No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. And then it's like, no, well, when are you? And I'm like, okay. And so then I went to the passages, like Rick says, went into everyone's resources, both egalitarian, both complementarian. And then ultimately I ended in I think it's soft whatever, because I don't really care about any of the, I can tell you what I believe. I don't care about all the fancy titles that everyone's using in theology. But basically the sense that I still believe in male senior leadership and headship. I believe that there should be a man or male headship leadership in the seniority position. So I believe women could teach, preach, be pastors, but the senior lead pastor should be a male. I believe that still is there and should be important. So I think they call that soft whatever, right? Where I think Rick went full scale to that they can even go and plant their own churches and be their own senior pastors. I think that
I don't know the facts on. I don't know the facts on
did.
that. I think that would probably have to be defined because we have a campus that is led by a female.
Yeah.
But she herself, that's our San Francisco campus, she
Yeah.
herself would say that she can do that because she's under my leadership.
Yeah.
Right.
That she's in the same house.
Oh, okay.
It's just another room.
Yeah. So she's a campus pastor.
She's a campus pastor.
So that's
She's
the
not,
la- yeah.
She hasn't started her own church, but she's under my leadership, my authority. So I think the male headship, I don't think anybody's really debating that. I don't think that's the debate.
Oh, it's for sure. Yeah, that's what's on the table.
Yeah.
cool. And that's
Because
cool.
because
Like,
no one in SBC would agree with that. They'd be like, "Oh no, she can't preach to men at all.
Sure,
she can't
no.
be a pastor at all."
No, I
So,
know that. I
but
know
they would.
that.
Yeah.
So
But-
I grew up in a Baptist church.
Oh no, I know full complimentary people who go, no, she can.
So
she
you
can
would
lead her
align
own
more
church.
with his.
Yes.
That the senior that
Yeah,
has
I
to be
think-
male.
Yeah, I think the senior leadership
okay.
biblical model is male, but what people are going to take from that one sentence is, oh, well, that's really chauvinistic. No. What we're saying is, God puts it on a man to serve, to empower, to
Yeah.
release. As a father, I don't dominate my family. I empower them. I
Yeah.
give them every opportunity. I make sure that I call them higher. I tell them you can do this.
Yeah.
I'm not there to say, hey, stay in your position, daughters. Hey, wife, get in your role. No,
Yeah.
I'm there to go, man, how can I be the best leader of this family by seeing giftings on them and accelerating them, by providing pathways for them to outwork that gifting so they can actually live large, to provide the best education, because I'm going to be the best dad I can. As a senior pastor, it's on you to see what's in women and release them. To see what's in men and release them. It's not there to say, hey, these are the rules and I'm the man here. No, it's actually to be the biggest empowerer, to have the greatest, I would say, identity as a man, to be like Jesus and say, Jesus was an empowerer of women.
Yes.
Jesus had women supporting his ministry. Jesus was able, because he is completely secure, to see but he also saw in 12 young men what they were going to do, and empowered them, and he dedicated his life to them. Okay?
Yeah.
And so what there was is he saw in that hey, your job is to go out and empower.
Yeah.
Go in power. So he curated his calling, not because he didn't see anything in women, but he had 12 men to raise up to go in power.
But
Yeah.
would you say? I agree with you. Would you say that the man has the authority over the wife and over the children?
Yeah. Well, let's define authority, right?
So So define authority.
Authority is covering.
Okay. So headship, would that be
Correct.
synonymous with headship? Because I think headship is the biblical word in Corinthians. I believe a man is head over his wife. And then I think authority may have been used as well. So is that kind of synonymous with your definition?
Correct. So think, if we see headship, let's think umbrella. Okay? As an umbrella, if I'm holding an umbrella, if you submit to my covering, you come under, say it's raining, and you just run over, you're like, man, let me get under that. Well, you're submitting to my covering. That doesn't mean you're cowering or you're kneeling or you're surrendering. You're just coming under this, because under that covering is the all authority of protection.
Yes.
You get to operate in who you are, but you're under that covering.
Yeah.
Right? That's headship. I'm choosing to come under your covering so I can operate in who I am, but under that authority.
Right. Okay.
And that authority, that headship, is a covering. So I'm going to take the covering. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in prayer. I'm going to push through to actually make sure I cover this whole organization, this whole church, this whole flock, whatever
Yeah.
God's given me the responsibility for. As the senior pastor, I'm going to take that with authority, integrity. That's why it's so dire when a pastor and a leader decides to break that covering, because everyone under them is affected. That's when they fall morally, all those kinds of
Yes.
things. They
Yeah.
literally don't just affect their
Yeah.
life and their marriage. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of the hot topic that's out there, when these celebrity pastors fail or whatever, and they're like, hey, this is just our personal No, it's not. Because you were covering so many people.
Yeah.
And so you actually broke a very spiritual code there as a cover and as a shepherd. You don't just get to say, well, hey, my private life is my... No.
Yeah.
No. You provided a covering.
Well, why
that
did
you
Paul
broke.
spend so much time talking about, pastors and elders and
Right.
and like so
The way
much
to
dealt
live.
with how their personal life was?
Exactly.
So then,
it
how
just-
do you define? Because the verse that's taken literally by the SBC is, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet, and then go home and ask her husband to teach her." I think that's kind of
that's
kind of a paraphrase. So what would be
In Timothy,
your
right?
Caleb's message version.
Yeah, so
your explanation
response?
of that?
I think
response to
Pastor
that.
Adam had a great explanation for that, bringing in a cultural context of how women were worshipped in that city.
Yeah, I mean that, and I get it. Like you cultural interpretation gets into muddy water, but my same question is.
But he goes back to Adam and Eve.
I know, but okay, MacArthur.
No. But here's my biggest question, and I'm fine.
I know.
I don't.
You don't
I'm
care.
not. I don't care. But
Yeah.
I really don't. But here's my biggest hermeneutic with that
Yep.
interpretation
Yep.
of taking the contextual argument is the LGBTQ Christians. They use that same hermeneutic for homosexuality.
Right.
So if somebody can like help me,
No.
They use the same.
Yeah.
They
You can't do
well,
that.
right, but that's
right.
I know.
I know.
But
I know
it's
what
the
you're
same.
saying.
It's the same hermeneutic.
I don't think it's
where,
the same hermeneutic.
Well, yeah.
but-
Well, okay,
yeah.
I do. Well, unless you can help enlighten me, why?
Yeah.
How I can
We have to
uphold.
go this is going to turn into a
I
part
can
2
uphold
Bible study the whole time.
I can uphold to women exercising authority through teaching. And that be explained that women can uphold positions of leadership over men, because that was contextual, but that's the same hermeneutic where homosexuals say, yeah, but the admonitions against homosexuality was contextual, and it was talking about a certain type of homosexuality, but faithful monogamous homosexuality is okay and blessed by God in today's day, because that was contextual.
Well, that's pretty far-reaching. So let's do this. Isn't it funny how, as theologians, doctrinal leaders, we will exegete every other scripture in the Bible except that one, and just take that one at face value? I do not permit a woman to lead over a man or to have authority over a man. We'll exegete and dig down on the cultural context of every other scripture except, that one we're going to just take at face value. So, especially if you're hard line, you know what an exegesis is, right? You've got to take 3 approaches. You've got to say, what was the letter intended for them? What's it intended for us? And what's it intended for me? There's 3 filters you've got to apply to Scripture to completely understand the orientation of it and the destination of it. What is the context that Paul as an apostle is speaking from, meaning what was going on in the church that he spoke to, or a young leader that he spoke to, and what is the intended destination that he wants to take them to? These elements come in. So taking that as a face value, but not bringing in the fact of Diana worship and cultural contexts, all that kind of stuff, really misaligns what was actually happening in the scripture at that time, and you're not appropriating it to what the cultural context is or what Paul was trying to produce in Timothy as a young leader. We also see that Paul speaks to Timothy specifically as, hey, stop being so timid.
Yeah.
Timothy, stop abdicating your authority. Timothy, stop, letting these loud people dictate what happens and have order in the service. So we know from the context of the letter, he's calling this young man who had an absent father, because he saw the faith in his mother Lois, his grandmother Eunice. He had an absent father. And in another setting, he's like, hey, I'm not granting permission for a woman to have authority over a man. Is maybe there's something potentially just lost in translation from original Greek to the way, or is he speaking specifically to a young man who's abdicating his authority? A young man who's not stepping up to his rightful as a leader over a church? Or is he for all time saying no women throughout all history will ever have authorty over a man in any
Can I share my experience? So like,
We don't do experience.
Sorry, we're not experiential. We're biblical, doctrinal.
Yeah. You've been quoting scriptures for an hour and a half, and now you want to share a story.
No, it aligns with it. So, I'm raised in the Baptist church. My dad is a minister. My mom is the minister of music. My mom teaches. My dad preaches. I go to Sunday school. It's a female that teaches me.
Your mom's mom, minister of music. You ever correlate that? It's pretty fancy.
Got it, minister of music. Okay.
Yeah.
Sister Du Bois is my Sunday school teacher. I don't see her exercising authority over me. I see our senior pastor seeing giftings in her that'll help me learn the Bible. Her husband, Brother Du Bois, would take me to the park and play basketball. So that's where the compliment comes in, where as a boy growing up in Sunday school, I can learn some practical things from her teaching gift under the authority that's delegated to this woman by our senior pastor. So that's how I reconcile it with my spirit. Now,
But you were still a child. So the
but
SBC person would say that's allowed until you're of age.
Oh, so then his mom has no authority in his life as a grown man?
So I'm
Not
talking
in
about for me.
ecclesiastical sense.
So I would say
if their
for me
family
today-
decided to start a church tomorrow, they'd say no.
There you go.
in the
here's
home,
thing.
yeah. But in the ecclesia, no.
If
That's
I had
what
a
they would say.
I had a conversation with my dad today, like if my dad's listening to this, and he knows that you have a campus pastor that's a female, his conviction would not agree with that.
Right.
That's just what it is. At the same token, when I look at my experience as a man of God, like my teaching, my giftings are a complement of my father and my mother. So like my desire to just exegete the text, just have sound doctrine, that comes from my dad.
Sure.
But then the creative illustrations come from me being taught by my mom, right? So I think it's looking at how the senior leadership, which I think we're all in agreement with, which is male headship, will have the gifting to also empower others in the community to be a blessing to the community.
Right, so you've got two things, right? You've got the exegeting of Scripture. You've got the structure of it. You've got to look at the context, all that kind of stuff. That's one thing aside. And we could, and that's where it's debated, the way you're going to interpret Scripture. It's Scripture interpretation, missing cultural context, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay, when you're approaching a letter, what's the theme? First, is it a letter to a church? Is it a letter to a person, a young leader? Is it a poem? These are all thrown out the window when this one scripture is approached. Okay, we're going to take it at face value. Now, at the same time, all of that aside, the proof is also in the pudding. Meaning, okay, if a fish, you say, can a fish walk on land? Not until one walks on land. The moment a fish starts walking on land, you're like, well, they walk on land. Okay? The moment a woman starts preaching, teaching, and you will judge by their fruit. That's what Jesus said. So in our campus, Pastor Brittany, our San Francisco, we have had people come to Christ, people get saved, people get baptized, people go on and their lives transformed. They're in leadership directly under her, who is directly under me. So you're going to say, well, all of that is null and void because she was female? Or What's
Yeah.
actually happening? Proof, the fruit of her ministry, the fact that God's on her life.
Well, no, I think it's God will use the gospel. I mean, he spoke through the mouth, not to compare a woman with an ass. But
Okay.
But that's always a fun illustration.
Where's Chelsea, Nancy, and Ashley and Sanaz who normally in this podcast?
People are like, how can God save through heretics? Because, well, I mean, because it's the gospel, and so God can. And Paul says whether it doesn't matter. I rejoice that Christ is preached, whether people do it out of envy or
Exactly.
whatever. Christ is preached, and in that I rejoice.
Exactly.
And so that's what I would say to that.
But isn't that a point in case then?
God can greatly use women, who are teaching and operating in a gift of teaching. He can
But
greatly.
you're saying,
But
should
is
it be done in
But here's the
praxis?
thing. I also have the church history illustration I've been thinking a lot more of lately because
Right.
here's the thing. I see the Eastern Orthodoxy as a legitimate Christian sect.
Okay.
I also see Roman Catholicism as a legitimate Christian sect. And those are the two longest. So I have to look at church history in regards to blessing and longevity. And so how is it that you have these ancient Christian churches that have stood the test of time, that have stood the test of civilizational upheaval, and you still have them functioning and growing? You still have them seated in Rome. You still have Eastern Orthodoxy flourishing and healthy. And they have very strict complementary roles of male priests. When regards to Catholic Church, it's female nuns, male priests. And I'm not saying I'm Catholic. I'm not saying I'm Eastern Orthodox. I'm just saying that I think there is something to longevity and the ability of a denomination to last through time when those roles are honored of male headship and leadership and female submission. And I think that I would venture to say if the Southern Baptists ever did open up that door where women can function as senior pastors, I don't think it would last beyond a generation. Now, I'm not a prophet. I'm not I don't, because when you look at a lot of the denominations that have ceded to that, they're all dying. A lot of them, Methodists, a lot of the more liberal denominations that were the first ones to egalitarianism.
They've embraced full
egalitarianism. Well, I know Pentecostal is the largest growing. I know,
but I mean, like Foursquare, AOG, like.
No, I'm not.
You know,
I'm not saying they can't. But Pentecostal is very
liberalized yet.
varied. They're not united under one banner. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about uniting under like one banner of they all align
Foursquare
to
has
certain
millions of
principles.
adherences.
Well, they can be successful, but what I'm saying is longevity, and even with Foursquare, you're looking at in regards to church history 100 years. So what I'm just saying, there is a strong church history argument as well to the fact that how is it that God has blessed the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, and for thousands of several hundreds years, and yet they hold to this very strict.
But that's where you and I differ. I don't think the Lord has blessed them to the degree that you're saying. Like, I mean, with how big the Catholic Church is,
He's blessed them. Sure, he's blessed them.
I don't necessarily.
I'm not trying to compare metrically. I'm just saying, clearly, the fact that they exist today. If Abundant Living exists 1,500 years from now as a denomination, I think I would say, wow, God has really blessed Abundant Living Family Church, right? That's what all I'm saying. I'm saying blessing as a definition of the ability to last through the ages and still bring converts. And what is entailed by that? You're lasting through the generations. You're still producing converts. You're producing succeeding generations that align to that subscribe to that raise their families and bring up their children, their grandchildren there. And so to me, they are blessed in that sense of being able to last and having that longevity. And I just think that's a testament to maybe there's something to them having male priests.
But are there stuff in the Catholic Church
having
that
a
you
clear
disagree
distinction? Of course I do. Having a clear distinction between I'm just open-minded. I'm just saying, hey, that is interesting to me. That is interesting because I used to be like, not only, I'm not as hardline with males can only pastor and preach as I was when I was at MacArthur's. But I was just as hard against the Roman Catholic Church and saw them as a heretical faction. I no longer hold to that. And I'm also more open-minded with female preachers and pastors teaching over me. Another side note, big wake-up call for me was I used to avoid Joyce Meyer too, right? But when I found out, and I used to judge her for her prosperity message and she's so rich and she just cares about money. But then I heard her testimony. Yeah. That she was abused by her father every day for years. When I heard that she should be dead. She should have been a drug addict, strewn on the streets. When I heard that, this woman can teach me any freaking thing because she is on such a level of overcoming in life. I have no right to judge a woman.
That's a great point.
That's gone through
You're getting
something
passionate.
like that.
Have a drink of coffee.
No,
listen.
No, Caleb, that's a great point.
I'm all over the place, I know, but just some different.
What I think you guys are doing right now is you're comparing fruit.
For
sure.
Yeah.
So the Catholic Church have produced fruit.
Yeah.
The postmodern era of church has produced fruit. There's different kinds of fruit that they produce, but they're all producing fruit. You get to determine what fruit you want to produce. We can't say that there is no bad apples within the Catholic Church. There's no bad apples within, the Pentecostal or mainline, church. There are always bad fruit in the midst of it. You can't judge it by its fruit entirely. Yeah. But what fruit is it producing? The fruit of the Catholic Church is stability. Okay. Even when we planned our church in Rome, we did a campaign, and essentially it translated a new way to do church because it was challenging this stoic traditionalism that locked people up in religion. Yeah. Okay. So, but the complaint was people were literally complaining how is that possible? Church has been done one way for thousands of years. Okay, that could be the only way. And then we had a Catholic priest convert. They had an experience with God. They were tied up in all the corruption of the Catholic Church. So they experienced it. They saw it on the subway each and every day on the metro. They came to a service, got saved, got transformed. Wow. Now he's getting married. Okay, good for him. What a great byproduct of converting to a mainline belief of relationship with Jesus. So the thing that was missing within the Catholic context was that personal relationship with Jesus. It was a deifying of Mary. It was a promotion of Peter. Yeah.
And Jesus being weak, either a baby.
Yeah, infantile, for almost permanently infantile, or just the main martyr. Yeah. Is kind of the high thing. Now, to Caleb's point, are they a sect of Christianity? Absolutely. Yeah. Do Catholics go to heaven? In time, we'll tell. Because none of us can say ultimately anybody else. Right. You can say for yourself.
There are sheep and goats in every sect. In every denomination.
It's like when people ask that, I'm like, are we talking about an individual or are we talking about the organization?
And nobody can say that.
But that's an individualized experience, though, because they're the same people who grew up in Protestant churches that are converting to Catholic now that are having this new birth experience. Oh my, Shia LaBeouf, we just talked about, who's coming to the Catholic. So I think sometimes, Mark Wahlberg. So I don't think that's a indictment on the Catholic Church. I think that's just an individual experience where you grow up getting stuck in a rut, whether that's Protestant,
but you can self-evaluate an organization.
Pentecostal.
We criticize Pentecostals all the time.
Yeah, you just do the same thing and you get used to it. You're raised in it, and then you're exposed to something new in the Catholic Church. Oh wow. The reverence, I feel like I'm a Christian all over again. So I don't think that's necessarily a testament to what's more true and what's less true. I think that that's just a testament to a person's own individual journey.
I have a theory around that. The people who convert to Catholicism after more of a mainline Christian experience there is something about the actual structure and that stoic stability that becomes more attractive. Yes. Rather than the freewheeling.
That's what Shia says. Exactly, he's like, I just don't want to go to a church that looks like a concert because I'm around that every day. So I want to go to a church where I'm forced into solidarity, which is okay.
Sure.
Great. But to say that a church couldn't be that on the other end.
For sure.
Because there's a person leaving the Stoicism who,
And there is also,
you know,
obviously
it's just
something about a very religious, liturgical setting that can actually make people feel more religious.
right.
That if it's almost that nun experience or a monk experience that if I have to push through this, that I'm actually penanced myself enough to persevere through a service and deny all my things that I like, and I've pushed through, therefore I feel a bit more righteous and holy as a result.
Yeah.
My danger with that is it becomes very much into that works mentality.
Yeah,
It
for
becomes,
sure.
I earned this. I earned my feeling of feeling righteous today.
Yeah.
That's the danger.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think it should be rooted in our articulation of the gospel, fruit of the Spirit. Are you being discipled? You know, the structures of the Book of Acts. I don't care what denomination.
And we
you are.
all do that,
Are you
right?
Are you reflecting?
I agree.
What a disciple of Christ looks like? Are you growing in your word? Are you growing in knowledge? Are you growing in those areas? Are you pursuing Christ daily? Then I don't
Yes.
care. That's why when people tell me, like, people come to me and like, hey, I think I'm gonna find another church that doesn't have women preachers. I don't say, well, I think you're in sin. I say, hey, if that's what you need to engage the gospel deeper, I disagree with you, but by all means, go do that. Because there are people joining our church who come from hardline abuse of gender roles, where the women can make. Now, I met a guy one time who he said, right now, me and my wife are going at it because I make her wear a veil every Sunday to church because I take. Now he goes to like a MacArthur style church, but he goes one step further, which I actually kind of even respect about him. I think it's silly, but I respect about him because he reads those verses in Timothy as straight. So when he prays, he has to lift his holy hands. When his wife prays, she has to wear a head covering. She's not allowed any jewelry or adornments whatsoever. He takes those verses completely literal. I think it's silly. I think it's a silly interpretation.
Right.
But when I talk to him, I go, bro, because we were arguing one time about women preachers.
Well, it's a basic interpretation.
And so I told him, like, well, bro, it's, you know, look at the verses about women covering their head. It's not like you're making your wife cover her head at church every Sunday. And he goes, oh, I am.
Oh, my God.
And I go, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, we have contention in our marriage because of it, but I'm praying for her submission to listen to
God.
that and blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting there and I'm like, so your wife isn't in agreement with like how you're interpreting this whole thing? No, I'm not. But he went to a seminary. I think he went to master's seminary. So he's like, I even disagree with MacArthur. I think you can't, because that's always been my question is, I get it. The little hermeneutical twist is, yeah, but the thing about women having authority, he's tying it to Adam and Eve. And then all the other verses, now we're going to just say those are cultural because he doesn't mention Adam and Eve in it. I don't agree with that. I don't think Adam and Eve being a use case immediately makes that for all of time.
Certainly not.
But, you know, so this guy applied it that way. And that's my thing. I go, bro, that's good for you. But because there are strong interpretations, it's not like we're doing the LGBTQ thing where we're completely just pulling the Benjamin Franklin thing and we're ripping scriptures out of the Bible. We're not doing that. Like, we're literally holding pretty fair interpretations that have really grounded both culture. Because if you listen to MacArthur's exposition on 1 Corinthians 13 and 14 that goes against tongues, he spends 4 hours talking about culture. 4 hours, because it's an 8-hour sermon compilation.
Right.
4 hours of it is him just giving you the study
Of the
of
culture of that
Plato
time.
and the culture and what batalegeto meant and what this means and what glossolalia means. That he's doing all cultural interpretations. So I always tell people, like, just go listen to a MacArthur sermon and listen to how long he spends quoting Aristotle and Plato and building his fundamental argument based off of what the culture was doing at the time. He just doesn't do it in the case of
women
this,
preaching,
which that's kind of for me was a little bit more, which I said, hey, because we're Protestants, because I think denominations are a beautiful thing of the church. I don't think it's segregation. I think that's true diversity. I think that
dynamics.
it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that a Korean church can worship with their Korean brothers and sisters on a Sunday. I think it's beautiful that a black church can worship with. Now, our church, we've decided to be a diverse church. That's what we've decided, though. I don't look at the black church or the white church or the Korean church and go, man, if they would just not be so black, then I think that their church would be more like the kingdom. more like God. I say, no, if that's what they want to worship and that's what they need, in the same way that I say, if someone's going to a Catholic church or they're coming to Orthodoxy, as long as it's not approached in heresy and as long as it doesn't change, as long as we're not going into Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right. There's two criticisms
now you're getting into trouble.
on both sides. The criticism of the Catholic Church is they're too stoic and too traditional.
Yeah.
But the criticism for an evangelical model is they're too in their feelings.
Yeah.
It's all based
to
on
a
feelings.
Catholic,
How do you feel?
To a Catholic, even the SBC is liberal.
It's two feelings. It's like feelings based. Like we want to experience everything, right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you don't feel like it. Like even if we go full circle to the beginning of the podcast, sometimes you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But out of duty, I'm going to worship God.
Yeah.
Out of my job because I want to. Now it's better to not do it out of duty. Do it with with enjoyment, joy, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes because I don't always feel like it. If everything was based on feelings, it wouldn't require faith.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say based upon the gentleman you were talking about that I'm going to apply the scriptures with that basic
Oh, and I didn't add because
interpretation.
I was speaking at a youth camp and I was wearing a hat. And he said that you're not allowed to preach with your head covered as a man. So that's how the conversation started. He was correcting me because he said that was an incredible sermon. I just can't believe you have the guts to wear a baseball hat while preaching that sermon. I said, what the heck are you saying right now?
Right.
And then I just couldn't believe my ears.
To his shock, God didn't strike you down.
Yeah, exactly.
To his utter shock, he was waiting. He's standing clear.
Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And then I was like, oh, here we go.
My goal is to try to, if I have that interaction, it's like, man, I want to treat this person how God would treat this person. And the way God is looking at it, this is a part of their story. This is not, hopefully, how this person will be for the rest of their story. We all progress. We all think, you were thinking a certain way 10 years ago. You're not thinking that way anymore.
Right.
You may go back to it 10 years from now, et cetera, et cetera. So what I look at how Jesus developed his disciples, he went to them as is. He knew there's certain personality issues. He knew Peter was stubborn, but I can make that boldness. So that gentleman,
there you go.
I'm looking at it like, oh man, he's disciplined.
There's
value in the kingdom of God for that discipline. If we're doing church like the book of Acts, because we're in community. Now, if you're only reading the Bible by yourself and you only have your interpretation, blah, 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 then there's some issues. Yeah. But like what we're doing, hey, help me understand where you're at with this. What we can say is, here's where I'm at with it today. Yeah. Here's where I was at with it 6 years ago. It may change, but here's the fundamental things that will
Aaron's
not
a good
change.
pastor.
He's great.
He's a great
He's a
pastor.
gunner. He is. He's a gunner.
My conclusion of this podcast is Aaron's a good pastor.
He's a rock.
Yeah.
When I go to Pomona and do this thing, I'm crazy, and he's that rock that stabilizes.
Yeah.
But what a great perspective. What a great pastoral insight to see, hey, I can see what you're doing, but let me draw the positive out of it.
Yeah.
There it is.
He's also the freshest out of seminary, so he's still really...
He hasn't been scorned yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't been burnt by the people.
He's still on a high.
So
All right, this was great. Conclusion. Joyce Meyer is a gunner. Lisa Bevere is a gunner.
She should make a movie.
Pastor
Lioness.
Kira, your wife, is a gunner.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
I love Joyce Meyer. I love you, Joyce Meyer.
All right, everybody.
I'm sorry.
God bless you. I'm going to lunch.
Let's go.